Thank you. Thank you for your cooperation and for being considerate of those around you. Enjoy the show. Please welcome to the stage Wardrobe Manager Bill Meyer, Manager of Art Decor Jeff Shattuck, Creative Designer John Asperin, Creative Designer Daniel Miller, and your host for this panel presentation, Associate Producer Pasta Berkey.
We're going to talk about some of our favorite things, which is Not Scary Farm. I gotta get my notes, give me a second. So, thank you all for joining us. We're very excited, and the first thing we kind of want to talk about is, Scary Farm is the granddaddy of all Halloween events, and sometimes things have to leave. I know. So the first maze we want to talk about returning to the fog will be... designer and the mastermind behind the Grimoire. Tell us a little bit about how this got started and some research that you went into it.
Sure. The crazy thing is, when it comes to, I think just about anything that we do, we're always influenced, right? For me, I'm a huge, I love watching movies, I love comic books. I love a lot of comic books, video games and things of that sort, but I think growing up, I think there's a handful of movies, right, that really resonated with me. A lot of them, movies such as like The Evil Dead, and then there's also other movies too that kind of sort of really influenced me. Things like Goonies, Sandlot, Stand By Me, and even television shows like Stranger Things, and all those things have something in common that kind of sort of see in the maze. And then one of the things too, and I will take just a second just talking about this. When we were during COVID and prior to COVID, there was a lot of informative changes that we had to do in terms of what we normally had to do, with distance and so on and so forth. And so with the Grimoire and what influenced all that, I think aside from just like the movies and the video games, what was going on at the time really shaped what we had to do. And one thing that you don't see in here too is Kurt Kleinman he created these incredible black and white plays that Ken Parks during time turned me on to, and it was one of those things that really started the wheel, and it influenced a lot of what we do. Over at the Pegasus Theater, he does like these plays, these black and white plays, like these spoofs of the 30s, 40s, and 50s American movies that sort of have and front presenting these black and white plays that just, you really see it in what we explored in Grimoire.
Well, I mean, if you've ever been into the Grimoire, which I hope you guys all have, if you're not, you should come by and see it before it leaves, it's very thematic. It has a whole, it's almost like you're walking through a movie. So let's talk a little bit about, when we were starting to build Grimoire, the storyboards, it kind of like, you took all of this information and you turned it into something unique. Can you give us a little bit more detail on how you ended up shaping the story of Grimm?
Yeah, with Grimoire, we wanted to sort of take guests through this journey of something that, going back maybe 8 or 9 years ago, the creative studio, it's important to say that it started off with our team, and you from front-facing side of things, you really didn't see it until it slowly started to see, well, there's scare zones, and the mazes inside of our scare zones are kind of closely tied in. And when we were laying down the earlier groundwork of our Scary Farm lore, one of the things that, at the time, were, just not even force-feeding guests, we were like, the idea of ancient relics was something I wanted to really introduce. And things over the years, from skeleton keys down to the witch's cauldron, and even down to when I wrote the backstory to the train conductor, and when I was writing out and developing the character and the idea of the lanterns, all this came about to where prior to the Grimoire, maybe years before that, it all kind of sort of led up to, well, what's our version of the Necronomicon? And how can we kind of sort of cross space and time with something while we have these incredible standalone IPs and we have this crazy lore, but somehow we have our own little cinematic universe going on at Scary Farm, right? Yeah.
So
it's kind of cool.
It's kind of crazy. So we went from storyboards, and if I remember anything from Grimoire, when it came to the elevations, this maze was originally designed for a completely different space. It 100% was not supposed to be in the Mystery Lodge. It was supposed to be a backstage maze when we're talking about these worlds we're creating. So can you talk about a little bit of the challenging, because it happened quick, that we had to redo this entire area?
When COVID hit, it made us shift the way we had to think, and the maze is available. And the crazy thing is, we never talked about this in public, but where the Grimoire currently is was supposed to be the original location of Bloodline 1842. One of the things that Ken and the rest of the team at the time, when we were looking at the success of Special Ops Infected, because it was such a linear experience and it was a zombie shooting experience, some of the dynamics and the formula of what that worked over there kind of sort of, was where Bloodline was supposed to be, but then we had to do the switch.
Yeah.
And then in that moment in time, within a short period of time, we had to create the Grimoire.
An entire new maze.
A new maze.
So this is the ground plan for Grimm in its current state, and it did not look like this originally. So if you kind of take a look, that it's kind of a long linear maze. John, when we originally, can you tell us a little bit about when you were reshaping? Essentially, you designed a maze twice.
Well, yeah, we had to think of all the things beyond just the design side of things. There's an equal play going on the operational side. So when it came down to our break areas for our talent, there was a lot of social spacing that we had to do backstage. And so normally on any given circumstance, we have our tents lined up next to each other, where one venue is right next to each other. But because of COVID and coming out of COVID, we had to factor in the space inside Grimoire to try to spread out our cast as much as possible. So it's kind of cool. And then there's always a toss-up of, should we use the Mystery Lodge theater and pre-show and things of that sort. So it was kind of, it was a huge combination of all those things.
It was definitely challenging to get up onto the ground, but it did come out really well, in my opinion. So within the Grimoire, you created these different sort of glowing worlds, and if you ever walk through the maze, you'll see that there's a lot of glow element that comes from the Grimoire. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with this glow?
I think what it was definitely a team effort. My partner Gus Kruger, who I believe is in here, also helped co-design this, and together, along with the rest of our creative team, we had Tyler Scrivener and Andy Gonzalez help out with some of the designing of the space. But a lot of it, we were trying to be purposeful in our design approach then, and knowing that time was against us, we had to try to figure out, okay, what can we do to try to paint and create signature things that you would probably see in an adventure of your favorite characters from Goonies going on. And so things such as the log cabin and the ravine, and there was the tree house. There was all these organic elements that we really had to try to, dive into and capture. And although, some of the stuff is, front facing, looks pretty good, it was really what can we do to try to sell that story beat as much as we could. We had our incredible lighting designer, Harrison, come through, and we leaned on him and what he could do with the lighting. We had our audio designer, we had Dickie, and then we also had Rob Perez help out with shaping all the audio stuff. So succinctly, all together, we wanted to try to have all those elements, try to really carry out this all these story beats in the Grimoire.
So when creating, we have the tech side, we have the ground plan. The next thing that really brings the maze together are the characters. And if you walk through Grimoire, there's kind of two different sides. You have the real world color side, and then you have these black and white scenes. How did these characters that you created, how did you pick them? How did you come up with the interesting concept of walking into a black and white world to show that you entered the glow of the Grimoire?
Yeah, I think the characters, when we're creating our stories, we're trying to find something that the guest can relate to, and some of the things that really resonated with me that helped shape the storyline. Number one was a timeline when this takes place, but it was also maybe the camaraderie that you see in some of those films that influenced me. The one thing that Stranger Things, the one thing that Stand By Me, that Sandlot, that the Goonies all had in common is friendship. And we wanted to create an interesting dynamics between the three human characters that you see at the beginning and then also throughout the maze. And it was almost one of those vulnerable moments where, hey, I used to be that dude, or I knew a friend like that. And in terms of the black and white world, that also allowed us to switch positions and contrast them so much that, okay, well, not only are they in black and white, but we're able to capture a certain timeline, and that's really what the Grimoire was. The Grimoire was our ability to somehow find out where this Grimoire's traveled through different times and spaces. And in terms of the visual aspect of it, our paint team and our wardrobe team did a fantastic job. I know Bill and Tim and the rest of the crew in our wardrobe really worked hand in hand in creating these different characters, and a lot of it is, I'll draw out like a concept like our hellhounds, and then by the time it gets into the hands of the wardrobe and their crew, they add their little 2 cents into, and their creative juices really start flowing. And big shouts out to Michael, who is one of our sculptors for our mask, did a fantastic job along with the rest of the crew. And so you get sort of this nice little mixture of characters.
Now I have to know, out of all the characters in the Grimoire, who's your favorite?
You know what? I'm going to say Sam.
Sammy's
Sam
your favorite?
in this one, yes.
All right. So now we have the maze, we have the base, we have the characters, and tell us a little bit about Scare School and bringing this maze to life. I mean, we were in the trenches up until the last minute trying to, we were there opening night, making sure the characters were in place. Tell us a little bit about it.
Scare School's fun. We have our venue supervisors, and we're very lucky that on the first year of Grimoire, we had 2 really talented venue supervisors that worked really well with the talent. And I think the great thing about what we had with the Grimoire was a cast that was incredibly talented.
They were so stoked.
They were the best cast that I've had the chance to just see out the gate, take real ownership of it. And I think, especially the kid characters, there was a little bit of their own themselves, that you could see in that character. And I think that's what, for me, really made it extremely special. But the Scare School, that whole experience, and just watching the talent really own these characters, I think was really fun.
So at Not Scary Farm, we love a good Easter egg. Yeah. There are plenty of hidden secrets that are in Grimoire. What are some of your favorites? Because I can tell you mine when you're done.
Okay, so Jeff Tucker, he wrote this incredible and directed Imitation of Terror, which was the year before. I mean, when we talk about planting seeds years and years ahead before we reveal it to the guest, it was a nice opportunity for us to kind of sort of hint at it. And it was a show that we had at the Mystery Lodge Theater. There's a lot of folks also that are very, very aware of our Scary Farm lore, the lore around Sarah Marshall. And so, we got a chance to introduce that in origins at the very end when you see Sarah Marshall flying around you.
The Grimoire.
The Grimoire. 8 Fingers 9. There's a little Easter egg that's in there. There's the comic books that are in there. But I think the coolest Easter egg is probably circling back to Special Ops Effective, which was my first maze that I had a chance to design at Scary Farm. And this whole idea that this takes place, that Scary Farm, or that it's Special Ops Effective took place in present day Calico. Ghost Town Streets takes place in Calico in 1885, post that. And then this one took us back to Calico in 87. So you see in all these signage, the county that we use in the same signage that that I did in Special Ops Effective, that's in there. And then the last one, there's a nice little shout out to my son.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. Absolutely, bar none, my favorite one. But yeah, this is pretty cool.
When you're walking through the 1950s area, Cameron is John's son, and I think it's hilarious that the dad is like, the whole thing is about slaughtering a family, and like, here's my son. It just kills me. So to close us out, do you have any final thoughts about letting go of Grim? Do you have anything, the impact of that maze that it really brought to Scary Farm? I thought it was a different pace of maze that really kind of changed some things.
I think it's I think we, in terms of the creative studio, I think we opened up the possibilities of telling additional stories with the idea of ancient relics. And I'm super excited to know that we're closing the chapter on the Grimoire, this chapter, but I mean, who knows, you might see the Grimoire later down the line, right? So
you never know when it'll show up.